Welcome to the Tour Life podcast from Well, Better, Best. I'm Janine, your host, integrative nutrition health coach and personal trainer. In the past 10 years, I've had the privilege of meeting some of the most interesting and hardworking professionals in the music industry. Whether you are a fan of live music or someone who actually puts on the shows, you'll find some great stories, advice, and encouragement to live a happier, healthier life doing what you love. Today's guest is a musician and writer who has collaborated and performed with Hacienda, Dan Auerbach, Alberta Cross, and most recently, Idle Green. You can find his book, When Love Ends Be the Water, on Amazon and his current musical project on Instagram at Idle Green. Here is my conversation with the wise and poetic Rene Villanueva. Hi, Rene. How are you?
I'm great. Super excited to be here. How are you doing?
I'm really well. I haven't seen you in when was the last tour I saw you on?
Been a little while. The Alberta Cross run?
Yeah, Alberta Cross.
Yeah, we had those that Chicago crazy sandwich.
Yes, it was Lucky's.
The Lucky's, yeah.
Yeah, that was fun. So yeah, what have you been up to all this time?
Well, a lot of different things. I've been starting some new music projects, doing a lot of doing writing for my music, doing some poetry writing, and then just basically just finding my direction in life is my constant pursuit of just being me. So yeah, finding where I want to go, the next project that I want to do. And it's always important for me whenever I release something that it's something that I really want to put out into the world and that I want to say. So it takes me a long time to figure out what I want to say next. So I've been doing that a lot.
Yeah, I saw some of you did like a project with your band where it was like this whole like interactive thing, right?
Yeah, so it was we recorded an EP it's based on a weekend of my life, which is also connected to the book. And then I wanted people to like listen to the music. So we were going to do the EP release party. And oftentimes people are at a place where they're not really listening to the music when you're hanging out live. So you're in a live environment, you're hanging out and drinking or talking with friends and not listening to what's actually happening. I wanted to find a way that maybe we could get people to like focus in and listen to the music the way it was intended to be written, or it was written to be intended to be listened to with headphones. So we made like a little dome and a makeshift bedroom, and people could go into it and interact with basically like a lot of my childhood bedroom stuff. And then you could sit and look at scrap notes of lyrics that I'd written, and then you can actually just put on headphones and hear the music as like how it ended up coming out. So yeah.
That's really cool. So yeah. How did it all turn out?
It was really cool. I think people had a great time, and it was a unique experience, and there was a lot of like little details that we put in, that we went into putting it all together. We had like my old laptop that had like hidden files that you could see like kind of various stages of my life and how that affected the songs. And so there was like almost too much to digest in one day, but I thought it was really fun. And I'm always interested in doing things that are different and unique. So it came out great.
That's so cool. Yeah. I've been seeing more and more musicians and like producers doing more like art installation sort of things.
Yeah.
Which I think is really neat. So you mentioned your poetry book, When Love Ends Be the Water.
Yeah.
So I bought it on Amazon when it came out, and so it's sitting on my dresser. But yeah, it was beautiful. There was like line drawings in it. So what got you to do that?
I've always been into writing. My whole career has actually been like a parallel between English literature and music. So right when I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life, I just graduated college with a degree in English literature, and at the same time, some songs of mine had gotten into the industry a little bit, and I had been asked whether or not I wanted to start recording, or I was offered a job as like a intern professor, so I kind of had to like make a choice between like the two. And then once things started slowing down with music a little bit, I got back into writing poetry more seriously. I was hanging out in San Antonio a lot more, and I met some local poets, and I met a local artist here, Ricky Ann, who does all the drawings for the book. She's like we're both big Kurt Vonnegut fans, and we kind of melded over that, and are like, I don't know, a lot of our visual aspects kind of like melded together, so it ended up working really well. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's how it came to be.
That's really cool. So when I was like reading it, I noticed that there's a lot, like, I mean, and I see it on social media, like you and your family seem like you're really close, like you seem to really have something special there. So I'm wondering, so when you went on tour and stuff, first of all, can you like let me know how you got into the industry, and then kind of how that transitioned into, with your normal life, and how you were able to still build a family through the whole thing?
Sure. Well, my journey with music started when really young. When I was in second grade, I started playing classical violin, and I took a lot of private lessons, and then I started doing competitions, solo competitions, and playing in orchestras. I was like the youngest first chair in the San Antonio Youth Symphony, and I was doing really good. And then our family decided to move away from San Antonio out into the country, where there was no string orchestra like support at all. So it was I continued to play on my own, but I didn't have that network anymore. And I ended up picking up guitar and songwriting. And at the same time, my older brother was just getting into recording music. So he had bought a Zoom 10-track little digital recorder, like a really early one. And we would mess around after school, recording songs that I'd write. So I would write a song, and then he would help me record it together. And we would do that basically every day after school, because all our friends before we kind of lost touch with, and everybody that was new had been these are like really small like country schools, so they had all known each other from birth, and kind of getting into that group was a little bit weird for me. So I was kind of just like on my own, reading a lot, doing a lot of poetry, and then writing songs after school. So as we were doing that, we recorded maybe about, I don't know, like 100 songs, but then we whittled it down to like 5 that we actually enjoyed. And we went out to see the Black Keys play in Austin. They were passing through for a Rubber Factory tour. And we kind of like got there super early because we're dorks, and we ended up talking about gear and music and all sorts of stuff that we liked. And we ended up getting really close with Dan, and we gave him a CD saying like, hey, here's some stuff. If you might like it. We like a lot of the same stuff. And we didn't end up hearing anything back for a few months. And then randomly an email came up that that's my son coming in. An email came up saying he wanted to show our music, that he liked our music, and he wanted to show it to some of his studio people. And we said sure, and then they asked if we could play it live, and which we couldn't, but we said sure because we didn't want to say no. And so they set up a show for Austin, and we ended up like randomly patching together a band and kind of like just going with that. So like every time an opportunity came up, we just said yes. And at the same time, I was doing that and then going to school for English Lit, and I ended up graduating university at 18. So I was still young.
Wow. At 18, you graduated from college?
Yeah. I graduated high school at 15. And that's another reason why I had a hard time connecting with everybody else, because I was also like 3 years younger than everybody else in my class. So it was really just a lot of hanging out with hanging out with my brothers and playing music, and that was sort of my entire world, was reading books and making music. And so my music path kind of was just like always paralleled with the thing that I thought I was going to do, which was do English and become a professor. And then when I was going through that English program, one of my professors said if I really wanted to be a good writer, she thought I would be better off not going for my MFA and just like focusing on writing. So that kind of like threw my whole plans of like becoming a teacher and becoming a writer on its head. But I ended up getting an offer for a job teaching English. And then at the same time, I got this offer to record our first album with Dan. And I said, all right, I'm going to try the music thing. And then everything just kind of like kept coming in. So I just kept saying yes to doing a tour with Dr. Dog, or doing another album. And like, I just kept going and going and going. And I didn't really have like a plan on what it was going to end up being or what I wanted it to be. It was just really more like this was in front of me, and I kept saying yes to it. And it like just kind of doing that like threw me around the world, and I did a whole bunch of really cool things, played some amazing shows, met a lot of amazing people. And then the music industry is also a very tough and difficult industry. So we hit some bumps along the way, and I ended up, for my own health, needing to take a break. So I kind of hit the brakes on a lot of stuff, and me and my brothers all decided like we needed to hit the brakes and regroup and figure out like what our life is going to be, and how what we really want, and how we can live healthier, because there was a lot on our plates. So we actually like took some time and just stayed at home and found like a lot of peace in like the things that were really important to us. So we had I got married and had some kids, and at the same time, I can't not do music, and I can't not be creative. So I'm constantly writing and constantly, making poems and writing songs. And I think it's just like a part of who I am, but I just needed a way to live that was healthy, because it was getting to the point where I had said yes to so many things, and I was doing so much, and the wheels were just in motion that like you just couldn't breathe, and you couldn't figure out what was going on. And the days were becoming really hectic, and the stress was going too far. And there's a point where it's like the whole point of being I think for a lot of artists, the whole point of being in the music industry is sort of like to not have that kind of like stressful nonsense life of like, what am I working for here? Like, I'm supposed to be having fun. Like the whole point of doing music is to have fun. And if I'm not having fun, then like, this is some kind of madness. So anyway, I kind of rambled off on.
No, that's
question.
great. So, okay. So yeah. You said that you met Dan from the Black Keys. And so did he sort of like take you guys under his wing and like use your music and then like produce an album? Is that what happened, or?
Yeah. So basically he had, when we met him, he was just starting to get into recording like his own stuff, and he built a studio in Akron, and he was like, I need a band to like help, figure out the studio and what he wanted to do. And we were just we put together enough songs that we wanted to record an album. So that kind of worked out, and we did one album with him and Dr. Dog. Some of the guys from Dr. Dog came in and did vocals with us. And then we did some touring, and then he was like, I'm upgrading the studio and I want to do another album. So we came back to Akron, did a second album, more touring. And then like in the middle of one of the tours, he had called us saying he was doing one of his solo albums and he needed a backing band. So we said yes to that. We did a whole run with him being his backing band, and then also opening the shows as Hacienda. So we were opening the shows, then playing as his backing band, which was awesome. And then he moved to Nashville, built a studio there, and we were doing our third record. And we also did a record in Nashville with him. And then, kept going.
It just all kind of started snowballing and getting busy, and
yeah, every album was a little bit bigger. The tours were longer. The money was getting a little bit bigger, and then there were more and more people that were wanting hands in the pot. So there was more business people and more opinions about what we should do and what we should look like and how we should live. And I was growing up. So when I started out, I was 18. My younger brother was 16 and my older brother was 21. And we were kids, basically. Like,
yeah, you guys were babies.
We were babies and super sheltered. Like, I had never left Texas, maybe except once to Disney World. I went to Disney World once as a kid, and I never left Texas before that. First time I had seen snow was when I recorded that first album. So we were pretty like sheltered kids. I went to college down the street, so it's like I lived here, grew up here, hadn't seen anything of the world, and that was a big part of it. But as we're growing up and sort of like moving into our own as adults and as men, like we're trying to figure out like what that all means, how we want to live our lives, and you have all these industry people who are much older and you respect them, and you have you just kind of want to please everybody because you want this to continue. We wanted this to continue, so we were trying to please everybody, and at some point we couldn't figure out like how to have a voice in that, and it was becoming pretty unhealthy. At the same time, like when we started recording music, my mom had just been, I think it had been like 3 years, but she'd been diagnosed with breast cancer. And right as we did the Dan tour, she passed away like a month before we started that tour. And so we were just like, the entire touring experience has been like growing up, dealing with a lot of stuff, learning to be adults, learning to have a voice for ourselves. And without a lot of support, I guess, that might typically exist. Like we didn't have, like my parents were wonderful and supportive, but they were dealing with so much that they kind of didn't have time to like help us. So we were really kind of on our own, figuring out like what this all meant and how to move forward. We never had a manager at all. We just kind of went off our gut and made some good choices and some weird choices, and and it ended up being that like by the time we had done the third album, we were at a point where it was too much, and we needed a break, and we needed to regroup and figure out what was important in life. And I think talking about like living healthy on the road, I guess like it's so easy to lose yourself and lose sight of what life is, because it just becomes this like weird endless dream of like moving and doing cool things, but never settling on anything. And I kind of felt like I'd lost a lot of roots, and luckily I'd kept some really close things. Like I'd kept my relationship with my wife now, who's been my long-term girlfriend. I started dating her when I was 17, so it was like the entire time we had been together, and she was my like reality check, so I could come home maybe for like a week at a time and have a sense of like, oh, this is what life is like for other people, and then I would go back onto the road and get lost again. So losing your mom, was that kind of like the definitive moment that like, I don't know, made you see that you guys were kind of unstable, I guess? Like you didn't have like stable footing? No, or like what happened? That was a long process. I think like losing my mom right before we went on tour was basically just like the most unhealthy thing, because we just put all our grief into the work. So I was drinking too much. I was living a little bit harder than I should have, and not sleeping enough, not eating well. I didn't have anybody to talk to about it, because even though you're close with your bandmates, you also don't necessarily want to bring that energy. Like every show is a performance, and you're performing for other people so that they can escape a part of their lives. And a big part of me is I'm performing something to people. So when I'm putting on a show, I'm trying to give them something, and maybe the music's positive, and then maybe the music's has pain in it, but it's I think the musician represents a lot of strength and freedom for the audience. And if I went up on stage and gave them something that had nothing to do with music, and it was just my own personal grief, I felt like that would be like a disservice to the audience. And I ended up just kind of compartmentalizing that, and because every time I go up on stage, I can't show that to everybody. And it's not like I can go up to the mic and be like, hey, I'm dealing with the death of my mom right now, so we're gonna have like a really somber performance of all these like really happy songs. It just wouldn't work, and it doesn't make any sense. So I have to go up on stage and be a part of me that's still true. I'm not lying. That music's still a real part of me. But I have to push back a lot of anything that is sort of like interrupting that performance. And so it basically became a long exercise of how long can I delay the grief? How long can I continue just being a performer and not having to deal with that stuff? And so that like it would come out like in between shows, like panic attacks, like just bouts of depression, just fights between us, just because everything was tense and we couldn't talk about it, and we couldn't like let's say you're playing a show one night, and then you have like a 3-hour drive, and then you have 2 hours in the afternoon. That's not like the time that you're going to say like, all right, I'm going to really unload. Like it never felt like the right time, and it never was the right time. And then you got home and everybody sees their girlfriends for a week, and then you're back on the road. So it's like, there was never a moment to say like, I'm going to deal with that grief. And it ended up being pushed back until, I think well after the third record, to the point where we were like, there was so much back grief and trauma that needed to be dealt with, that I had to like hit the brakes completely and do a lot of self-reflecting, and do a lot of self-work, and find like, and then looking back and being like, oh man, there was so much that had to do with my losing my mom, and there's so much that had to do with not having my parents around to guide us, and there was a lot to do with the fact that I hadn't yet defined myself as an adult, and as I was trying to find my voice, it ended up erupting in these like awful ways, and so I think by the time that everything that I was trying to deal with it was already way past when I should have dealt with it, and I just that was just what ended up being the case. But.
Yeah, wow, that's honestly, it's an amazing story. And so your wife now, you said you found kind of home with her, right?
Yeah.
So how were you with her when you lost your mom?
Yes.
Yeah. And so how did you guys manage that? Like, how did she react to kind of the things that you were going through? And obviously it all worked out, but how did you guys interact?
We had a lot, we had a lot of trials of like, she was there when we first started, and then was there through every experience. So it ended up being that she was like, okay, you're going to be gone for a weekend. You're going to be gone for 2 weeks. You're going to be gone for a month. And like, we kind of learned to develop our relationship and build our trust slowly over that time, to the point where once I was full on touring, we had enough trust that it was really solid. And then when my mom passed, I was actually supposed to be on the road, and that tour ended up being canceled by the other act that we were supposed to be with. So randomly I was at home we were at home, and my mom, there was just always these like little moments of like, she's okay. And then she would need to go into the hospital. They were going to run some tests. So it was one of those, like, it had happened a million times before where she's like, okay, I'm going to go into the hospital, and do some tests, and she should be out by the weekend. And it wasn't a big deal. And then the weekend turned into the next Wednesday, then the next weekend. And it kind of like, as what was happening, it was sort of like just this like sharp decline. So it was super unexpected. And then she passed, and Rachel was always, supportive and there for me in the best way that we could. We were 20, just turned 21. And you think you're an adult at that time, but I look back and I was still like a kid, and we both are. And you're just trying to be adults. So we're trying to be like smart and sophisticated about it, but we don't really know how to process things. But she was just there for me in whatever way I needed her to be, and that was actually kind of the moment that I knew that that we were going to be together for the long haul. It was a way that she helped me deal with my mom's passing. I knew like that was a solid thing that I could always trust and always depend on. And then we had that little 2-week break, and then we were already booked for the Dan tour, like for the Dan Auerbach tour. So my mom passed on like, I think a Tuesday. We had the funeral on Thursday, and then that next week I was packing up to leave. And so like it was like by after the funeral had ended and people were leaving, I was already like compartmentalizing and being like, how do I get ready for a 3-week run on the road, and playing all these songs, and I have to focus on hitting my marks and singing in key and being like, and just putting on the show. So it was almost like immediately I had compartmentalized it and pushed it down, and started to just move on to the rest of my life, which was a horrible way to deal with things, because it just resulted in a lot of just built up negativity and trauma in me. And yeah.
Yeah, and you do what you can, right? I mean, like you said, you were 21. I mean, I'm 31, and I'm just figuring out how to be an adult. So
yeah.
like barely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally get that. And that's really great that you guys were able to, to support each other and communicate throughout the whole thing. So when did it start kind of really like it had, the pressure is there, right? Because you're compartmentalizing it, and you're pushing it away, and you're trying to not really feel it all the way.
Yeah.
And you know how grief is. It's like you may be like kind of in shock at first, and then like a couple weeks later, you're just a mess because it actually finally hits you. Did you have an experience like that?
It was like a full wave of like feeling it. I mean, no, I wouldn't say it was never like a one day, like, where I just kind of like let it all out. I don't think I've ever been the kind of person that grieves that way. I think everybody grieves differently and finds like, their own ways of processing it. I think, my earliest memory of grief was when my grandma died, when I was probably like 6 or 7. And I remember being at the funeral and everybody having that like huge wave of grief and crying. And there was a lot of like outward emotion, and I just didn't have that. And I remember feeling very guilty that I didn't have that outward emotion. But it always stayed with me. So I think I'm just kind of like this like slow burn of grief. The way I digest things is just like, it stays with me, for a very long time. And it's just kind of like this like dull, constant pain. And it was that's very similar when my mom passed. So it was just kind of this like always dull pain in sort of like the back of my head, just kind of like I could never get up.
It was just kind of like wearing you down.
Yeah, and then it would just build, because anytime, like when that's your like status quo, and you're sort of just like permanently depressed, you have this like anything that adds on to that is just met with like, this like edginess, where like I'm way more on edge than I should be. Like these little things shouldn't bother me, but since I'm already bummed out, like there's no everything sort of adds up, and then over a long period of time, I just kind of was looking back and seeing like like my life had been this like long build up of depression that I had yet to process, and so it never like flooded in. It was just like this long build up, and then the long process of sort of like releasing it out slowly, and poetry has been a big help for me for that. It's just like every poem slowly letting out a little bit of steam, and letting out a little bit of pain, and getting through that, getting it out of me in some form, because it doesn't release. I'm not like a big like outburst crier or anything. Sometimes I wish I was, because I feel like I wish I could just like throw it all away and get rid of it, but it's not how I do it. So
Yeah. Oh, wow. So you decided to basically step off the road, right? Because of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I decided we just, the three of us had decided we needed to step back and really start taking control of our lives. And there's this, I think, and I see it in a lot of bands, there's this like feeling that if you don't continue, that it's all gonna fall apart. So everybody says like yes, and more touring and more shows, and more is better, and you don't ever say no. Like we heard that so many times especially from labels that pressure you. They want you to, like, you got an album out, they want you to do as much touring as possible. So if there's a tour available, you say yes, and you never say no. And we were getting to the point where it's like we wanted to say no, and we were constantly guilted into saying yes. And every time we were like, hey, how about this time we take a little break, it was always like, oh, you guys are ungrateful, or you're lazy. And that just made us feel worse, because this is our dream, and this is something that we're very passionate about and we love, but it's like we really just need like a month to breathe and figure out like what we're doing here. I think like I said, like for us, and I know for me especially, like I have to have a purpose for my performances. I have to have a purpose for writing a song. I can't just like churn them out, and I don't like going up on stage just playing the same bit, miming it out over and over again. I don't want to do that. It doesn't make me happy. So I have to go up on stage knowing like this is what I'm going to give to somebody, and this is why I'm going to give it to them, and I'm really happy about it and excited about it. And the more I'm excited about it, like the more I can put into it. And then when it gets to this point where everybody's wanting you to do the same thing over and over again, and you can't, I couldn't say no. I felt like that was just sort of like this systemic music industry thing where they want you to keep going no matter what. But it really was like, it was so unhealthy, and we needed to take a break, no matter, however much that hurt us, or monetarily or whatever. We had to do it, and we had to figure out like a way to stand up as, like I was saying, like as an adult, and being like, no, this is what I want, and this is how it's going to be healthy for me. And these are the things that are important to us. We need to have family time. We need to see my dad. I need to watch movies and rest, and read books, and reinvigorate my creative spirit. And I couldn't just churn things out forever. It's just not good.
Did you guys discuss kind of was there a moment where you guys are talking, and then you kind of just like admit to yourself, I'm not okay?
Yeah, we had several really big conversations where we were saying like, we're in a bad space, and we're not doing, this isn't what it should be. And like, once you say it out loud, that was kind of like a weird admitting it. And then once we all said it out loud, it's like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like, this isn't right. This doesn't feel right. We're not moving in the right direction. This is way more of a struggle than it should be. And we needed time to refocus. And so we had to hit the brakes. We had to go back in the studio and basically like tear everything down and say, what is important to us? What do we want to say? What do we want to sound like? We had to rebuild everything, because it had just gone off the rails.
Throughout all that, was there anyone who helped you guys out, or was it just you guys kind of figuring it out? Did anybody offer you any advice that really like helped you through it?
Our last label head, Tom Berry, who's a good friend. We had a good sit down conversation with him in LA, and we were kind of telling him how we felt, and he was the one that was saying, like, you have a hard decision to make, but you know what the right decision is, and you know sometimes you just have to you guys have to man up and make the right call, and you're the only ones that can make it. So I think like a part of us was always hoping that somebody would come in and give us an answer,
or like give you permission,
or be like, yeah, this is the way to do it, guys. Like, you know, and because we didn't want to be the ones to hit the brakes like that. But then once he said, like, it's always going to come down to you, and like the three of us ended up having a long talk after that, and kind of knew, yeah, that was the thing to do. I wish I kind of had more fortitude or knowledge to have seen that earlier. If I have any regrets, it's probably like I kind of felt that, but I had trouble expressing it, and I wish I had felt that and could have nailed it earlier and said it earlier. But you know, that's life.
Right. Well, what about now? So now it seems, I mean, you know, I know we only really see highlights, right, on social media,
Yeah.
but it seems like you're doing really well. And you know, Rachel, right?
Mm-hmm.
She's a yoga instructor, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
cool. So like, does having that wellness aspect, do you think that kind of helps ground you and keep you more stable?
It has been like my most stabilizing force. I started doing yoga and studying Zen Buddhism when we started dating. So when I was 16 or 17, and a lot of my philosophy through going through life has been Zen based, and just, you know, following things as they come, trying not to be resistant to change, trying not to hold on to definitions of myself that are egotistical based. So that has been like my therapy and my mental stress, like, or my mental stress relief. I do yoga and meditate. We built a little studio here in Texas, so she's got a nice little. I mean, it's actually very big. She's got a big clientele of people that really love the works that she does, and she makes a really big difference in a very small conservative community, bringing a lot of positivity to Texas. So
That's really awesome. So Zen Buddhism, who introduced you to that?
let's see. It was through my study of poetry. So I was really big into the beats during high school, probably like everybody, but a lot of Allen Ginsberg and Jack Kerouac, they were all about Buddhism. So I was like, I had to read what they were talking about in order to understand the books. And then I got into Joseph Campbell and sort of like world mythology. When I was in college, I did several world mythology classes and courses. Um, and then I got into Aldous Huxley through just library finds and a lot of his philosophies of sort of like, I guess just sort of like a broad overview of mythology. And as I was trying to figure out what I believed and what I wanted for my life, like that Zen had basically the only philosophy that I couldn't disagree with. So that was the one I ended up enjoying the most. It's the one that makes the most sense to me. So I keep close to that.
That's really cool. And so what about your kids? You have two. We heard one of them, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a son, Ulysses, and daughter Genevieve. They're 5 and 2. He just started kindergarten, and she's a little crazy monster running around, helping out around the house, and yeah, they're the best.
Oh, that's fun. I was chatting with, there was an episode that aired previously with Macy Taylor, and he mentioned that he went on tour with, I think his niece and nephew. And, but it was funny because they were like toddlers, like running around, like, like at sound check and stuff. And I just think that's funny. So are you considering, going back into touring, or are you more focused on like poetry right now? What are you doing?
Well, when I was on a break, I was my friends at on Alberta Cross invited me to play bass, and that's when we last hung out. We did that tour, and then I was at home, and they needed help for a South by Southwest performance. I think it was 2 years ago. And during that, a stage light rig fell and hit my shoulder. And,
I remember that. Oh no.
Yeah, and two of my discs in my neck are herniated, so I can't really play bass longer than like an hour. It's just kind of like was the ultimate pain. So I physically can't play as long as I used to. It's just too hard on my body. And so I've been doing a lot of adjusting my life. So we figured out in my new project a way for me to sing more and play. I don't have to play less, and I can get through performances. So yeah, we just started playing shows again. We kind of figured out a way that I can, I think, contribute the way I would feel comfortably, but without having to hurt myself any further. And we just did a 3-day run with Ila Bamba, who's like an awesome band from Portland. We're looking to get back on the road, but it's going to be definitely slower paced, I think, than everything we did before, and more wellness focused. Yeah.
That's what you learned, right? To take it easy.
Like personally not overdoing it, but also I don't think anybody's actively malicious, but there's a lot of people with their own interests, whether it's like the label that's pushing you to tour more, or people that are designing the stage that they're just tired and overworked, and they're not necessarily thinking about musicians' safety. And I've kind of learned that like you have to have like a healthy sense of distrust and backbone in order to be like speaking up for yourself. Like I think if I were to tell a musician starting on the road anything, it'd be like you have to look out for yourself. You have to say when something's not comfortable, speak out. There's a lot of times where things are not comfortable and no one's there really to help you. There's a lot of times where there's like weird people in the backstage, and you need space, and you need to be able to speak up and say like, I don't want this person here, and that's okay. And it's okay to say like, I don't want to do this show. And it's okay to say like, I don't think this looks safe enough for me to play here. And that's okay. Like there isn't a lot of people advocating for the health and safety of musicians. I think, especially as we start out at the beginning, like I think once you're up in, touring arenas, there's lots of handlers looking out for everybody. But for these, like for the indie acts and the kids that are just starting out, and especially the ones that are like super young, like doing it in vans and stuff, there's not a lot of people advocating for making wise choices. It's kind of like kids running loose in a date in a summer camp, and you need to be like, it's okay to say when things are uncomfortable. It's okay to say when things are not right, and you shouldn't feel pressured into doing anything you don't want to do. I've been pressured into doing a lot of weird stuff and stuff I wish I had somebody to back me up with. And instead I was always like, hey, don't be the stick in the mud, or don't be complaining. Like, we just should be happy to be here. It's just a rock and roll party, man. And I'm the one with a hurt neck. So.
Oh man. Yeah. And was that at the Willie Nelson Ranch? Or that was a different thing?
It was, that was a different thing. There was the stage fell on, I don't even remember the name of the club. It was on Rainy Street. Oh, okay. It was just like it was like a makeshift club. So they do like, the way a lot of festival works is like, it's not an actual stage. It's like they throw it up that day. They throw the speakers up that day, and they put you like in a little alley between like a burger stand and a car lot.
Oh yeah. Or like in the little courtyards and like whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you have like 1,000 of these being thrown up by people that have never done it before. And, they're cutting corners and they're trying to get through the day, and everybody's stressed out, but no one's thinking about safety. But even on like bigger venues, like I've played the Echoplex in LA, and we were doing like a pretty sizable show there, and I was constantly getting electrocuted by the microphone. And I kept telling everybody like, this is a problem, and they were like, no one would help me. So like, I'm on stage being electrocuted by the mic, and it has to do with like specifically like the bass, where the bass was plugged into, and where the mic lines were being run. And everybody was basically like throwing up their hands like, hey, keep singing, like they bought tickets. And I'm like, I'm being electrocuted in the face by this microphone, and like no one would help out, and everyone's like, just keep going. And I had to like walk off stage and say, no, I'm not gonna do this. Like, that's
insane.
Yeah. And yeah, there's lots of moments like that where everybody's just like, get through the show, and don't be a problem.
And you're young, and you're trying to hustle, and you're trying to make it, right? And
yeah,
and people see, I feel like people see the music industry as this like, it's like a dream, right? Like it's just this like, if you achieve that dream, it's like you got lucky, right? Like, like that's what it is. You got lucky. Like like people don't see all the hard work that goes into it. Like, it's not just luck. And I think having that, like, just having that as like what drives you, thinking that it's just luck, can make you, suffer for things that like you really shouldn't.
Yeah. And it kind of gave me a sense of sort of like guilt, like, oh man, who am I to complain? I'm so lucky to be on the stage. I'm so lucky, to be on this tour, and I'm so lucky that this stuff is happening to me. And those things are all true, but that doesn't mean that you don't have the right to say like, this is not cool. Like, and somebody should be like, yeah, they should want to help you out. I like, it's not always the case that, those things that seem common sense actually end up happening. And I think that kind of stuff wouldn't be acceptable in other industries. Like, that would be an easy fix somewhere else. But for some reason, since it's the rock and roll industry, you should just like write it out and have a fun story, instead of like, being healthy or being like taken care of. And that's not like diva stuff. It's just, common sense to me.
Yeah. I was at a show at Lincoln Hall in Chicago, and it was Beth Ditto was playing. She was doing a show and it was like completely sold out. But this was like after like the Orlando shootings and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they only had like one security guard. And so generally for like LGBTQ stuff, they want a little bit more security, you know,
Yeah.
just in case. And I think it's perfectly understandable. And like the tour manager, she was kind of upset because she's like, okay, like you have one guy, just one. And so, you know, they had to like hustle and like find a couple other people to do it. And like, you know, someone for the back door and like someone for the front and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, you know, it's like the initial reaction was just kind of like, well, so what? Like,
Yeah.
who cares? But it's like, and I guess having, you know, your tour manager who's like aware of that helps. And then, you know, having a manager, I feel like if you guys had a manager, at least one that cared, maybe,
Yeah.
right, then maybe things could have gone a little bit differently. So, are you guys still doing that? Like where you're kind of just still managing yourselves? Would you consider, do you think there's a time when you would consider hiring someone? And is it difficult to find someone who like genuinely like cares for you?
Yeah, I think it is. I think we would be into it with the right person. We've been through enough of these like relationships where it's just not a good fit. And that was one of those things where like before I'd be like, oh man, I'm so grateful to have somebody's help. So yes, I'll let you, you know, take the wheel for a little bit. And it felt like it was a relief, only to find out like, you know, they're not making choices in your best interest, or they have like their other things in mind, or they don't really understand you, like what you're wanting to give, the way that you feel like you should be represented. And that, I've had enough of those experiences to know like, hey, if it's not a good fit, I don't need that in my life. I'd rather just, you know, be in charge, because I think I've had enough experience in the music industry to kind of self-manage myself and what we're going through. But you know, I would, if it was a really good fit, I think it always is a benefit to have a good supportive team. And that's one of those things that really is luck, is like having a great band and then a great supportive network, because it takes so many people. It's not just the people on stage, it's, you know, the agents and the managers and the labels and the marketing people and all. It's like this huge machine. And if one of those parts is off, it can derail, you know, the whole thing. And so having that whole team is something that I think we're always looking for, but it has to make sense for us, and it has to be the right people, because I don't have time for nonsense like that anymore.
You live and you learn, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow. This has been really great. So I want to know, do you have any advice for, you know, for anyone, and also people who aren't in the music industry, you know, that can help them lead like a, you know, a happier, more like calm and, you know, good life?
Yeah. You know, kind of going back to what I was saying, I think the world is going to ask a lot of you and a lot from you. And there's always a system that's going to tell you like, this is how you are going to be a good person, or this is how you're going to be a productive person. And for a lot of, especially in America, for a lot of what's going on, it is about being productive and being profitable. Like, people are valuable when they're productive, and when they're valuable, and when they're making money. And the more money you make and the more productive you are, the better you are at being a citizen, the better you are at being a person, and the better your life's going to be. But you are the only person that can decide what actually makes you a valuable person. And you have to set your own priorities. And sometimes it means like taking less money, or, you know, saying no to something. But you get so much more back when you have time for a family hangout, or time to see your kid go to his first day at kindergarten, or time to develop your relationship with a loved one. You know, there's so many people especially in the music industry, it's almost like a cliche that you have like a long-term girlfriend that you're going to break up with because, you know, you spend too much time apart, or a long-term boyfriend, and like you just drift apart because you don't have any time to build that relationship. And any relationship you have, especially a love-based one, takes a lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of time. And in order to do that, you have to sacrifice something, and you can either sacrifice your personal life for your career, or your career for your personal life. And you should never feel guilty choosing the things that actually make you happy, and not the things that other people think will make you happy. And it always comes down to getting rid of those ideas, because they're imposed by other people and they have no real weight on you, and you're the only one that ends up alone or tired or disillusioned with things. I know lots of people in the industry at a lot of different levels, and you know, some of them are happy and some of them aren't, and like being successful is not a thing that makes people happy. Like there's a lot of really successful musicians that are depressed and lonely, and because they never developed that, and they're like, you know, 30, 40 something year old people that like that are perpetually stuck at 21, and they're still looking for that like date experience. And it's like, that's tough, because you can't go back in time and you can't redevelop that. Like it's just gone. So, you know, that just disappears, and you have to put in the time and the effort in your own happiness. Because the careers it's good, but it is what it is. They're like fun experiences. If you know anybody, you don't have to be in a band to tour the world. You could just grab some friends, get in a van, and drive to a couple of cities and live the touring experience. Like you don't have to have the music industry to have some of these experiences. So whatever it is you want to do, if you want to travel. If you want to have a love, you know, find love. If you want to play music, but don't sacrifice what actually makes you happy for the idea of something that isn't actually going to make you happy.
Yeah, define your own success. Like take some time to actually think about like what does success actually mean? Like how do I define success personally?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that was amazing. Thank you so much, Rene.
It's great.
You're so insightful, and I love it. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me. I'm sure I'm going to invite you on the podcast in the future, probably. We'll see how far it goes. But yeah, that was such a great talk. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon. Here are some key takeaways from my conversation with Rene Villanueva. 1. It's easy to lose yourself on the road, but keeping and nurturing your close relationships can bring you back to reality. 2. Pushing down and avoiding grief can result in a lot of built-up negativity and trauma, but meditation and introspection can help you cope. 3. Don't let yourself be guilted into saying yes to things you don't feel right about doing. 4. It's okay to step back and take care of your mental health when you feel like you're in a bad space. And 5, define what success means to you. Only you know what's best for your life and career. Take time to figure it out and make the right call. Thank you so much for joining us on the Tour Life podcast. Be sure to give Rene a follow on Instagram at Hacienda_TX. And don't forget to subscribe, leave a review on iTunes, and to follow the Tour Life on Instagram at the Tour Life Podcast.